Today, President Koke.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we have been doing at the beginning of every meeting for a couple of months, I am going to read the CCS mission statement. Carmel Clay Schools will provide opportunities for all students to realize their potential in an ever-changing world. And now we're going to move on to the presentation portion of our meeting. And tonight we will recognize the Carmel High School Girls Lacrosse State Champions and the Carmel High School Girls Track Team State Champions.
Thank you, President Koke. We're going to be recognizing two spring sport teams here as we get late in the summer, and this is always a treat to be here in July talking about accomplishments from last year while we're all in the midst of getting ready to ramp things up a week from now. So before I start, first of all, just thank you for having us as always, because the support of our school board and district administration is just paramount to what we are able to do at the high school with all of our athletic and extracurricular programs. And these two groups this evening, I think, really exude all of those things that we hold to be very important in extracurricular activities. Not only they're getting the job done in the classroom, but also how they just are as people. And then obviously they are very good at what they do athletically as well. So before I talk about our girls lacrosse team, and I'm going to have them come up, the members of that team that are present. Coach Miller is with them. And then we've got some team members. As they're coming up and getting assembled, I do want to thank not only the parents from our lacrosse program, but also the parents from our track and field program that are here this evening. Being a parent in our athletic programs is we ask a lot of them in a lot of different ways. And they're always willing to step up and do all the little things to make the experiences great for these kids and for our coaches. So we're very, very thankful for all of that. And I know on behalf of our student athletes, thank you for always waiting out in the parking lot when they're a little slow getting out after practice as well. The girls lacrosse team completed their dominating season by defeating Guerin Catholic 10-6 to earn a second consecutive state championship. This team had the target on them all season as favorites, so it was not an easy thing for them to do. Avery Gale, Sophie Mock, and Ellie Tamalia were all named All-Americans. For this group of seniors, they were not going to let those expectations get in the way of a memorable season. They exhibited great enthusiasm and teamwork on the field, and off the field they have worked very hard to continue growing the sport in our community while representing our school district in a first-class manner. The head coach is Josh Miller. He is here this evening, and he will come to the podium to introduce members of the team that are here.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, it was a great season, and we're excited to be here. Thank you. To my left here, we're just going to go down the line. All seniors here. Brooklyn Jenkins. Avery Gale is right next. I'm trying to see there. Nora Rafferty. Ellie Tamalia. Ella Pasilio. And Megan Hauser is here. They're all here representing us tonight, and we're thrilled to have them. Thank you.
Our next team that we'll be recognizing this evening will be our girls track and field team. So if I could have them come up, just like the lacrosse team did, and we'll say a few words about their accomplishments this past season. The girls track and field team completed a long-awaited journey back to the top on June 7th at North Central High School. This team has been so close for so many years, and this season had contributions up and down the lineup to win their first state championship since 1999. The Greyhounds won the title without winning a single event, which is the second time ever that feat has been achieved in the IHSA history. The team had many incredible performances under great pressure at the state meet. This group set 17 indoor and outdoor school records in the last 3 seasons, a very impressive track and field resume. This is a special team in many regards. Being a part of an individual sport in the spring can bring a lot of challenges to our teams. However, these Greyhounds really brought the energy every day, and all of that hard work paid off for them. Additionally, senior Emily Norris was named Carmel High School's Girls Mental Attitude Award winner, as voted on by all of our head coaches, and this is the highest honor given by the athletic department to a female student athlete. I would also like to add that this state title was the 200th state championship for Carmel High School, which was pretty exciting too. Our assistant coach, Carly Markley, is here this evening, and she's going to step up, filling in for Aaron McGrill, who thought going to Europe this time would be a more important thing than spending the evening with us. So Carly's going to introduce members of our team that are here this evening, and Aaron certainly sends his regards.
The athletes we have here today are Becca Bellinger, Olivia Cebolo, Sadie Foley, Gabby Grande Rosas, Olivia Munt, Emily Norris, Caitlin Oshimura, Annabelle Pollard, and Larkin Taylor. And then our coaches, we have Courtney Cooley, Haley Harris, Alex Wagner, and Scott Williams.
Next on our agenda are the recognition for the Carmel Clay School Support Staff Member of the Year, Assistant Principal of the Year, Principal of the Year, and Administrator of the Year. Dr. Herrera.
All right. Good evening, President Koke, Dr. Ostrike, and members of the board. I'm excited to announce Rose Kalili as our 2025 Support Staff Member of the Year. She is unable to join us this evening. However, we had the opportunity to celebrate her this spring. Rose has worked for Carmel Clay Schools since 2003 and is currently the head custodian at Carmel Middle School. If asked how you would describe Rose, her colleagues would tell you Rose goes far beyond her job description every single day. She is not only a vital member of our operations team, but a trusted, compassionate presence in the lives of our students and staff. Let's give a round of applause for Rose Kalili. All right, next up, I'm thrilled to announce that Brad Seaver is our 2025 Assistant Principal of the Year. Brad brings an unwavering passion for classroom instruction, ensuring that students in the Polytechnic and Science departments at Carmel High School engage in meaningful and authentic learning experiences every day. Brad has been a huge advocate for the work-based learning program, and through his efforts, he has continued to expand work-based learning opportunities. Dr. Ferris shared that Brad's dedication and impact are felt in every corner of Carmel High School. His tireless efforts reflect a deep commitment to the success of both staff and students. Please join us in congratulating Brad on this well-deserved recognition. Yes. All right, it is an absolute honor to recognize Kelly Davis from Woodbrook Elementary as our 2025 Principal of the Year. If you ask anyone who knows Kelly, they'll tell you she's the kindest and most supportive person you'll ever meet. Kelly's always ready to lend a hand, offer thoughtful advice, and uplift those around her. She's a team player through and through and someone you can always count on. As the principal of Woodbrook Elementary, Kelly works tirelessly, often behind the scenes, to ensure every child's needs are met. Her leadership is grounded in integrity, care, and a deep commitment to doing what's best for her students, her staff, and families. Kelly Davis embodies everything we hope for in a principal. Please join me in congratulating Kelly as Principal of the Year.
Before we go to the next person we're going to recognize, I wanted to thank Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Davis and I were at the City of Carmel neighborhood pop-up in Woodland Springs right before this. And if you've been outside recently, it's pretty hot out there. So she did a really quick turnaround. So we appreciate you being there, and we appreciate you being here. So congratulations again, Mrs. Davis.
All right, I am excited to recognize Amanda Hoagland as this year's 2025 Administrator of the Year. Amanda is widely respected across the district as an expert in her field and a true servant leader. She's known for her unwavering willingness to help, collaborate, and support teachers, always putting the needs of others first. Her approachable leadership style and deep sense of commitment have made a lasting impact on countless educators and students. Amanda's passion for STEM education shines through in her daily work, whether she's guiding staff, lending a hand in a classroom, or actively participating in events. Amanda is a consistent and inspiring presence. Please join us in celebrating Amanda Hoagland for this well-deserved honor.
And we will now take a brief break for those of you who would like to get home this evening or to enjoy the heat, or you are also welcome to stay, or you can stay. Thank you. Comment, however, this evening, no one is signed up for public comment. So next, we have our consent part of our agenda. Tonight, the consent items include personnel reports, claims, payroll, gift applications, the minutes from the June 9th executive session and the June 9th workshop session, the June 23rd regular session, and the July 14th executive session school board meetings. And as a reminder, these consent items are grouped together. That's something that we do for the business portion of this meeting. We group them together into a single motion so that they don't take up too much time in our meeting, but these are things that we obviously have to address. Do I have a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda?
Madam President, I move to accept all items on the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, thank you. We'll now take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We will move on to the action items portion of our agenda. And our first action item is the appointment of Deputy Treasurer, Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. Our treasurer position turned over in late spring, and so Amanda Kushar is our current director of finance. And so in the meantime, we appointed an interim director, you did in January. And so we're asking to appoint Amanda as the director effective August of this year. And then you'll do this again in January.
Thank you, Mr. McMichael. Do I have a motion to approve, I'm going to make sure I say her name correctly, Amanda Kuchar as Deputy Treasurer?
Madam President, I make a motion to appoint Mrs. Kuchar as Deputy Treasurer for the period August 2025 to December 2025.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All right, thank you. We will all take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have several change orders. So before we discuss those individually, so those will be, Mr. McMichael will discuss those individually for us. May I have a motion to approve the change orders as a group? The items for these change orders include item 5.2, Carmel High School Softball Complex, 5.3, Cherry Tree Elementary renovations, 5.4, Carmel High School Polytech Edition, item 5.5, Carmel High School Football Stadium additions and renovations, and lastly, item 5.6, Carmel High School Natatorium addition and existing natatorium renovations.
I move to take items 5.2 through 5.6 as a group.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you, Greg. Any discussion on, not on the change orders, but on grouping them together as one motion? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor? And again, the motion is to group items 5.2 through 5.6 on this agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. With that, Mr. McMichael, can you give us a little background on the change orders?
I can. As noted, we have several various change orders this evening. The first is for, I'll start out with the good news. The first is for the softball complex, and it's a deduct change order of $42,000. We like those better than ads. And about half of that is what we refer to as a closeout change order. So that project's essentially finished. And so this is closing out unused allowances for about half of this, and then the details of this, all of this is in your report. But that's a majority of that deduct change order. The second change order is for Cherry Tree. It's a very small $2,038, but most everything there, as you can see in your report, in the detail is a net zero, we call it, to the school district, because, for example, if it's in a contractor's original contract and we end up having another contractor do it for various reasons, then it becomes an add change order to the new person, but there will be a deduct change order that will offset that. And so the net change order for this small change order is actually a deduct of $1,900, so every little bit helps. And then we get to the larger change orders. First, the Polytech project, and that change order is $173,000. It does have a slight offset for a chargeback of about $10,000, but still it's $163,000. The vast majority of that is for electrical shutoffs at the teacher's desk, and that has to do with a safety issue. It was there before we did the addition, but it was not, that shutoff was not included, and so that's something like $123,000 or so, and again, the details are in your report. There would have been a cost there, just, we would have preferred it been in the original bids. And so when there's something like that that's left out, that it's not really unforeseen. And so at the same time, we would have paid for it. We may not have paid this much. There's always a question on change orders because unlike the normal regular bidding process, you don't have competition. And because it's not practical to go get a different contractor and bid it and do all this for this. So we don't like that type of a change order. But nevertheless, it happens at times. And then the next change order is for the stadium. It's about $10,000 add, and it's for temporary water and sewer for temporary restrooms, which that was we could foresee it, but until we got into the project, it wasn't clear enough to know. So we knew we were going to have that. We just didn't include it in the original bidding. And then finally, the natatorium. It's another large change order, relatively speaking. It's $269,000. There's about three major areas. One is for, we had to, about $66,000, had to demo ceiling tile in order to install steel. The steel was in the specifications, but we couldn't install the steel without removing the ceiling tile, and that wasn't in the specifications. So a little similar to the emergency electrical part, that it could have been, but it wasn't. And so there would have been that expense to remove that, but it would have been in the bid rather than as a change order. And the second one is, which is $96,000. We had a pool leak that was unforeseen, and I guess it's a good thing that this project, we identified that, because hard telling, this was the original pool. So no way of knowing how long it had been leaking, but it's not something that you would want. One, you're going to have a certain amount of water, loss, and it's also eroding underneath, and you can imagine it's not, it could be a real problem. And it was, $96,000 to fix it. So that was absolutely an unforeseen condition, which happens in large projects. And then finally, there's about $50,000 of what I'm referring to as cosmetic upgrades. And you saw some of this on the tour. But the lobby, for example, in the original pool was really not touched. And then we built the new pool, which has also a new lobby, and you saw the difference between the old and the new. And so in trying to minimize that, in that area, as an example, part of this change order is to put laminate panels on the old part, which are the same panel that's in the new, and these two lobbies run together. So you look this way and you see the new, and then you see the old. We'd prefer people we don't want their impression to be, okay, this is the new part and that's the old. You can't do away with that altogether, but that's an example where we try to minimize it. And then we had some things down in the locker rooms. If you were down on the pool deck, there are, I'll call it chain doors, where you can see through them. Something like the shopping center place would pull down so you can't get in, you can see in. But with the environmental conditions, they become rusty and they just look bad. And when you clean up everything else, they look worse. And so that's another example of some cosmetic things. And so that's kind of a summary of all of these change orders. And we'd recommend your approval. I guess you haven't done that, but
Thank you.
thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the action items 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6 on the agenda? And we had grouped those all together, so can I have a motion to approve all of those? Yes. Okay, so the motion is to approve action items 5.2 through 5.6. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And any discussion or questions for Roger?
Yeah, just it's a clarification,
Mhm.
mostly for the public. So these change orders, it's quite a variety. But these are covered within the budgets that we've already approved before for them?
Yes, in any project, all construction projects, we have contingency. We identify what we call a contingency allowance. That's really intended for things like this, because we know they're going to happen on large projects. And while this is certainly a lot of money in the context of the cost of the projects, fortunately, it's not. It's a small percentage. We'd like for them to be zero, but it's a small percentage as compared to the total. So we generally, depending on the project, we'll build 3 to 5% of a project into that contingency. That's why that first change order was a deduct of $20,000, because that was part of the unused contingency those contractors had. Now, in addition to, we usually put in about 3% in each contract. So when you're awarding bids, there's 3% added in there that we may or may not use. And then beyond that, we have other, kind of overall contingency for kind of all, basically, if you have a bond issue, you'd have overall contingency for every project in there. And so one project may come in over the amount that you allotted in that 3%, or the work of that contractor may be more than the 3%, but then we may have other contractors, we didn't need any of their contingency. So it kind of balances out. And certainly we keep an eye on that because we have to have the money to pay for the project, and I wouldn't be recommending you approve this if we didn't have a way to pay for it. So that's always the answer, that we'll have it covered one way or the other. We've had some cases where there may be a project that we don't do because, we're going to finish the ones we've started before we, if it came to that. But that usually doesn't happen, but it can.
So there's not any kind of overrun condition. These are all the things that you can't think of everything when you're scoping out a large, complex project. So these are some items.
Short answer would be yes. Overall, we're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I just wanted to express my appreciation to Dr. O and Mr. McMichael and the staff and all of the construction management folks that took us on a tour of all of these facilities. We saw the softball complex, we saw the Cherry Tree Elementary renovations, the Polytechnic addition at the high school, the football stadium additions, renovations to the tennis courts, and the natatorium addition, and really, really appreciated that. I'm a visual learner and a visual person, and so it really helps me to understand how the projects come together, and they really appear to me to be very well done, and I'm excited that the kids will either already are taking advantage of them or soon will be.
I'll echo Mrs. Wheeler's comments about the tour. I do have one question. I'm going to use the Polytechnic change order just as the example. So we talked about that was not, the shut-off switches were not identified early on. So moving forward, how do we, what's the process for trying to avoid things like that next time around?
Well,
I know it's not on you per se, right?
I'm going to say it's the same process that we have always followed, and yet, things happen. So it starts with, the architect, in this case, the architect's one developing the specifications, which is the design and thus what's included. And that's where this was not included, so obviously we didn't get bids. And so you have, one, we try to work with we think the best architects that we can find, and we believe we're doing that, or we'd be recommending a change. Then they're certainly, this is the last thing they want, because sometimes the question is how come we have to pay for it? They made the mistake. So you didn't ask that question, but I'll answer it. And the answer is that is that if there's a value added, that happens sometime, by the way, but if there's a value added, that is, you would have paid for these, because if you're going to put them in, you'll have these shutoffs that you don't have right now, and you didn't pay for it. So if the value added, we pay for it. If it's just a mistake and we got no value, and we've had that, in fact, you didn't see this because the architect, just lowered their expense, but there was a situation where there was a mistake made on one of the turf fields in terms of the layout of the logo. It wasn't, in the scheme of things, it wasn't, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it was several $1,000s, and we didn't get any benefit of that. I don't know the specifics anymore, but let's say it was just in the wrong place, and we wanted it over here, and it was supposed to be over here. Well, that was a mistake, that getting it where it belonged, we still only had one logo. And so that was their fault, and they acknowledged that. And sometimes we have different opinions on that, by the way, but in this case we didn't. And so that's kind of how that works. And but when I talk about the specifications, there are hundreds of pages. And again, we don't want any mistakes, but as long as you're dealing with human beings, sometimes that's going to happen. And so it really becomes the scope and and how many mistakes, like a lot of things. We all make mistakes. We just don't want to make too many of them. And so that is how we approach it. And then we're also participating on this team, and so we've had our current facility director does not have this background, but the previous one was a licensed architect themselves, and so that can come in and not, but we don't want our person, reviewing hundreds and hundreds of pages of specifications. That be the only thing they could get done. And, but they are, kind of in the business, and even if they're not, don't have that specific background, we have in-house staff that has construction background and so forth. So everybody's trying to get to the same place because nobody wants oversights. We don't want it. They don't want it because it reflects badly on them, and so that's kind of the process.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm just going to echo what two of the other board members said, and just the reason the board has been doing these, so that the public kind of knows the reason we've been doing these field trips where we get to see facilities is, we are the stewards of the community's money, and so looking at those projects and understanding what we have voted on and what we get updates on, it makes it a whole lot different than just seeing it on paper. And so we really appreciate the administration taking the time to take us out there and explain things to us. All right, thank you. We'll now take a vote. All in favor of approving items 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next up, we have we have two discussion items this evening. The first is the proposed facility projects for 2026. Mr. McMichael.
I was on the wrong report, so hang in there just a second. I got ahead of myself. Yeah, just a sec. Here it is. There. I got it. All right, we're getting there. Between the new system and I'm old, those two don't work very well together. You're thinking it, I just say it.
Yes, if,
with the new system
yeah, so
earlier.
so that the public knows that we, for decades,
Okay.
have used board docs, and
So,
now we're using something called
That's right.
Diligent.
We are doing that.
Yeah, so that's,
So,
it's a new project, new idea.
Make what? Oh, it is up, but it's not on that. Thank you. Okay, so as the board knows, we have been, we're doing facility projects rather regularly, and so this evening I'm proposing projects that I'm referring to as the 26 projects, because that's when we would start to finance and do this. And this is the first step. There's several steps, so this is a discussion, it's not action. And in fact, it's about a 6-month process. There will be at least 2 public meetings for public hearings to give opportunity for the public input. And also, and part of that is they're giving input to you, so for you to consider their thoughts and opinions as well. And so it's a long process to get through. And so I'll just start then with the first project, and some of these you are aware of and some of them you may not be, but the first project is a major renovation at Smoky Row Elementary, and I'm sure you're aware of that we're anticipating that. You mentioned Cherry Tree. This is kind of the sister school built off the same floor plans about 4 years later than Cherry Tree, and so it's up for a major renovation, very similar to the condition, site and different things are a little bit different, but it's basically the same building, and it needs a complete renovation. And as you see here, the estimated project cost, not construction cost, but the total project, which is fees and architects, everything, furniture and whatever, is $32.5 million. And as I said, it'll be a project similar to the Cherry Tree project. The next one is Carmel Middle School, and it's a significant, and I'll elaborate on that in a minute, what we call mid-cycle project, and it's $14 million. And so while the middle school, a mid-cycle this school was renovated, had a major renovation, and it was finished in about 2007. So about, that many years later, it's time, the finishes are showing wear and tear and so forth. And so we do that, but in this case, a significant part of this is some of the mechanical equipment. And to reflect that, the Parks Department, who uses our middle schools, had to move to Carmel Elementary because the air conditioning wouldn't work. And it wasn't something we were going to get fixed in a hurry. And so that just kind of reflects, what I'm saying. Even though the building had a major renovation in 2007, that's not the same as a new building. And you spend a lot of money for a major renovation, as you can see from Smoky Road. But in 2007, some of the major, chillers and so forth, they didn't need replaced then, but they do now. And they won't go another 15 or 17 years. Or if we try to, you won't like it. None of us will like the outcome. We don't like it now. And thus the recommendation. And you can see other things also, inside and outside parking lot. We call it building envelope repairs. There's windows issues and leaks and just different things like that. And then, so that's that project. The next project is the high school. And we know the high school is about 1/3 of our total square footage. So that reflects a reason why we do a lot of work there. It seems like all the time. And so that project, first, there's $8 million scheduled for, referring to it as completion of the stadium project. That's a variety of things, but you know how much paving's up there, for example. So that we'll repave that and everything that implies. There's also some significant concrete and sidewalk type work. One being that we built that south support building, which you saw on the tour, but we need a path, basically, and I'm not talking about a sidewalk like in front of your house, but a path that gets from that new building to the visitor side, which that's where they go now for concessions and for a whole variety of things. And so, or if they're coming in, that's the kind of the main entrance, right? And so you can get to the other side, you can get to the home side, but that side not so much. So that's an example of some of the other things. And then it also has things like fencing and landscaping and those other kinds of things. We'll do some work on the, you did see when you drove by the tennis complex, and most of that's finished, but we haven't touched the building. And we won't spend, millions of dollars on the building, but we will spend some money to, particularly, on the inside, well, both, but the inside will get certainly what we consider at least at a cosmetic level, and there may be some other things too. Because that building is, I don't know how old now, it's probably 25 years old. And then we have the smaller numbers at the high school. We got $1.5 million for a section of a roof replacement. It's over 1 million square feet, so that you don't replace the roof for $1.5 million, or that roof for $1.5 million, but you can do a section for, in this case, about $1.5 million. It's where the main cafeteria is at, and it started because we need to replace the exhaust vent in the kitchen, and so that's really a smaller portion of this. The larger portion is the roof needs replaced. It wouldn't make any sense to put this vent on top of an old roof. And we're having some trouble with the roof, of course. And then there's $1 million for the auditorium fire suppression system. When we went to get approval at the state level, you may have remembered this, but and had just finished the renovation of the auditorium. The state level folks said you have to put in, we won't approve your Polytech project unless you put in a fire suppression sprinkler system, essentially. And we had asked for a waiver, thought it was routine because it had been for the last 20 years, and because every project we did, even if it's down at the stadium, it doesn't matter if you have some place that's out of compliance, you have to bring it up. Except here, they'd always given us a waiver, but new board, different people, different opinions. So we'll be putting in a sprinkler system in the auditorium. Then we have some door leaks, and for $500,000. So there's that's more to that than like a small leak at home or something. And then an emergency generator for another $500,000, and then we have miscellaneous projects, and that's just what it says. It's $1,250,000, and we have that there for various HVAC repairs, some minor roof repairs, some parking lot and asphalt type things, and so that would conclude the high school. And then at Cherry Tree, $1 we will be back, or not back, well, we'll be back to Cherry Tree, but about the time the building proper is finished to do the playground. And a significant portion of that is for a rubberized surface rather than mulch. And you're seeing that more and more. And I think all of the Parks Department, you know, their parks are newer than some of our schools. So I think that's the only, I'm sure that's the only product they use. And we've been doing that as we have a new school, like the 2 new elementary schools, for example. But it's also very expensive, but it's obviously a more consistent surface from a safety standpoint and so forth. And then finally, we've $1,250,000 for district-wide miscellaneous projects, and essentially the same thing, similar things as at the high school, but you know, kind of across the district. And with that, I think that's the total for the projects. And what we'd like to do is come at the next meeting, which is the workshop, rather than a month from now, and we won't review these so much anymore, but I'll add to it by sharing with you the impact of this based on our financial advisors relative to tax rate and cost. And this year, that narrative is going to change because of the change in the state statute. You're all aware of it. But with some of the new legislation affecting property tax and property tax levies and so forth, essentially what happens is that legislation is in fact going to raise tax rates. Now, you know that raising tax rate, you don't write your check for the tax rate, you're writing it for the money, the levy that it generates, the amount of money. So the fact that the rate goes up doesn't mean that you're, because of some of this new legislation, for example. In other words, if it lowers the assessed value to get the same amount of money that you would have or need, it would raise the tax rate. And that's why I'm saying in some cases it's going to raise. And in other cases, where like our referendum, unfortunately, where the tax rate is a maximum fixed rate, all things equal, it would likely, it's going to give us less money. So you can't raise that rate even if you wanted to. You could get a new rate, but you couldn't raise the one that's there, that's already been approved. So at any rate, that's the summary. And then we may also include as a part of this at the next meeting a little more information about, you'll see that, and it'll come out about some of the new legislation. And then finally at that meeting, I will ask for action to advertise a hearing. And so that third step would be, after you've had 2 meetings, then the third meeting would be when the public will have an opportunity to comment. And by design, you know, that's a few weeks out, so there's more than ample notice, and there's a process for that as well, where we invite the public in to comment. So that's concludes my report.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the report. It's nice to see that so early in the cycle. A couple questions on the high school. Was that, I assume that wasn't funded by the existing bond that the construction we've been doing recently? Same question with Cherry Tree.
It is not. Correct. In other words, this was planned from the beginning in the sense that if we, sometimes on large, like that being a large project, when we sell bonds, we start paying interest because we've borrowed the money basically. And so sometimes we'll split that up for that reason alone, because otherwise you're also earning interest, but if you earn too much, you have to give it back. They call that arbitrage, and you can't earn more interest than you're paying. And Mrs. Wheeler knows that. But so this was anticipated to be, you know, total, that whole site basically. I think this is right. When we finally finish this, I think we'll be done at the high school, at least certainly for that stadium area, for the foreseeable future, because we really will have touched about everything at that point.
So if I understand it right, you're saying these projects really couldn't have been done or shouldn't have been done at the same time of the current work. So we're not going to go ahead and buy or issue bonds to pay for work we know we can't start till later years.
Yeah, I mean, as you could imagine, we wouldn't pave the parking lot while we've got it all torn up and keep tearing it up.
Right.
And with big, all kinds of vehicles going in there that makes it worse. It's already bad enough, but we want to fix it at the end so that we aren't, if we did it too early, we'd essentially damage new asphalt by the time we get finished. So there's a sequence of.
My last question is the total amount, 63 million. How does that contrast to typical years worth of capital projects?
I don't know if we have a typical year, but to the extent we do, from memory, I think it's in the range of the 24 bond issues. As I remember, I think they were $60-some million, so about the same. One of the things that I do, and at the next meeting we'll present to you is as we talk about these projects, always present financial information about, the next 7 or 10 years. Because if I stop at this year, I go, well, look, this isn't too bad. It doesn't do much to the tax rate. But if I say, if I don't tell you that we're going to, 5 years from now, we're projecting $100 million for something, so you need to know that, and the public needs to know that, so that it's my way of saying we don't just plan for this year and what we need. We're always looking about, really more than 10 years, and we know the farther out, like any forecast, farther out you go, the more likely something's going to change, timing and all kinds of things, and money and everything else. But we do that at least we recognize that the needs for facilities don't go away, and facilities have a life cycle, and we take that information. It's a little more complicated than that, but we take that information and are always forecasting and projecting, and then updating when we have a recession or something. We have pricing going way up, and inflation and 40-year high and all that. Then we adjust our numbers. And so it's always changing, and just inherent in the process is, but the closer we get, like I'll tell you that, I think we're pretty solid on what at least the major things that we're going to propose in 29. So, that's 4 years from now, but I've got a pretty good idea what they're going to be. I don't know what the 29 cost will be, but I know what they'll be. And so part of this financial projection is we're also projecting, because when you get to cost and tax rates, and then if you consider a 4% increase in the cost, and you consider 4% increase, or the money, and you consider a 4% increase in the assessed value, then the tax rate's level. But as some of you know, if you have a 13% increase in your house or in the assessed value, and some of us did, and some of us had, that was an average, so some of us had 20 or something. If you maintain that tax rate, then it is going to cost you 13% more money. So on the other hand, if your assessed value is level and the tax rate goes up 4%, then you pay 4%, not 13%. So all that goes in, and that's reflected in the information that I'll share with you. And so, and not to get too far ahead, but right now we're looking at the near future of assessed value being flat, because it's one way we don't know what it's going to be. So rather than telling you it's going to go down or up, let's assume it's zero. And if it's zero, then doing these projects, that's why it will show an increase in that tax rate, not the overall tax rate. Our operations fund, for example, I believe the tax rate's going to come down some. It's gone down, by the way, the last 2 years, so good overall for a school rate. So anyway, we'll talk more about it at the next meeting, but that's kind of how the process works.
I could ask more questions, but
I know you could, and I could answer them too. But,
Just one question. You mentioned the issue at Carmel Middle School with the air conditioning.
yes.
And that Carmel Park's set to move summer programming.
Yep.
Do we have a Band-Aid in place for the next 6 or 8 weeks when we're going to be running school and it's still going to be summer in Indiana?
Yeah, I believe we're fine. I haven't heard otherwise, but I always get an update about this week for sure, but, which I haven't gotten specifically on that. But it was a matter of, we know the problem, takes a certain amount of time to get the delivery because it wasn't like sitting on a shelf in Carmel or somewhere. And so I've not heard the concern for school, but it wasn't, given the length of the summer program by the time we got there, and the fact that it was middle of July, it was better to move the park, so we moved it to Carmel Elementary.
Thank you for this. I really think this is nice. Sorry, I skipped you. Did you have anything? No? Okay. I'll be brief. I appreciate, and I think the rest of the board understands that, we kind of see the things that are coming next year, and we know that there's a plan kind of for the next, like you said, 4, 5, 7 years, but that sometimes things come up, like at Carmel Middle School, that you maybe have to, other projects kind of get moved aside. And so I think we all understand that it's a plan. A plan is a plan, but sometimes things have to change. So thank you. Our next discussion item is the 2026-2027 school calendar modifications. Dr. Ostrike.
Thank you very much, President Coquet, members of the board. I wanted to bring a discussion item to you this evening regarding our 26-27 calendar. And as we were reviewing for next year already, we saw that we had an opportunity to potentially add a week of summer for our students next school year. Because when we first created the 2 years worth of calendars, we mirrored them, based upon the feedback from our community. We sent out a survey, got feedback from our community, put the calendars together. But what we didn't realize is that Memorial Day backed up a week. And that happens about every 5 or 6 years, as you know. And so we could keep it the same and mirror it, but with having the potential of giving back a week's worth of summer to our kids, we thought that this was a worthy conversation for the board to consider. And so for next year, and we're talking next year, we're not talking this year, just to let you know, this year's calendar is perfectly the same. But for next year, here's the board-approved version that's up on the screen. And it mirrors this year. Our kids would start August 5th, teachers 3rd and 4th. Fall break is in there, and then as you see, last day for students would be the 21st. The teachers would have to come back on that Monday, but then Memorial Day is not until, I believe, the 30th of May, so that kicked back a week. And so what we'd like to propose for our community and our students is that our students start a week later. So they come to school on August 12th instead of August 5th. Now, taking a look and balancing the days and the semester and all of that, the students would then go till that Friday. But if you look at winter break there, you still get your 2 weeks of winter break in there. Teachers come back. In addition, we're also recommending that we move forward fall break as well. To correspond with moving forward the beginning of the year. It's a nice 9-week break, especially for our middle school students who look at those 9-week grades and such. And then it also aligns us more closely with the school districts around us as well. That'd be the same as Zionsville. It'd be the same as the first week of Noblesville. They have 2 weeks that they do. And then HSE and I believe Westfield would be the week after that. So it aligns us a little bit more with our neighboring school districts as well. And then if you take a look at May 27th would be the last day of school. That would be Thursday before Memorial Day. That last day of school would also align with graduation. And so just like we've had the last 2 years, or maybe more, the last day of school, then we have graduation that evening. Works very well with our families. In the current version, our families would have to come back the next week, wait a week. And as we know, many of our families are already planning different camps and different vacations and so on and so forth. So, and then our teachers would come on that Friday. They wouldn't have to come back after Memorial Day like they, I believe, have to do this year. And so a summary here is that we recommend, because Memorial Day does kick back a week, we recommend giving our students a week back of summer for next summer. And in addition to that, it would also give our staff a week who are on the school calendars, our teachers and such as well. We recommend moving fall break a week up. Graduation would then align on that last student day. We believe that's more a schedule that our parents would appreciate at the high school level of those seniors. And then I also wanted to note that this calendar modification still aligns with the needs and preferences of our community from the survey that we put out 2 years ago. That was important to us as well. We are going to put out another survey to our parents as well, probably around November-ish, December-ish, around there, like we did a couple years ago, to say, hey, how's this calendar going? Because we just started that full week of fall break not too long ago. Is that good? Do you like ending the school year by Memorial Day? Do you like, ending the semester by winter break, and so on and so forth? And then do you have any other recommendations that we can take a look at? So Dr. Herrera, she'll be tasked with putting that survey together, as I used to do that in my role. So that is our proposal. We feel this is in the best interest of our students and our families. We also feel that there's still ample time if families are making vacation plans for 2027. They still have plenty of time. If they were making vacation plans for 2026, they're still good, because we would recommend moving the week up. So there's nothing lost there for our families making those plans. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
No
Thank you,
fair.
Doc.
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I thought you said me first. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ostrek. I appreciate how you have been so intentional in asking the community and the staff about these calendars over the last couple of years. Certainly, it's not helpful to the community when we make an arbitrary change and it doesn't fit with their schedules, their lifestyles, and the way they are scheduling for their families. So I know it's very appreciated, and thank you. I know it takes a lot of work.
Sorry, Madam President, I thought you were going to me first, and I wasn't ready last time, so I was about to say no fair, picking me first again. But thank you for letting Ms. Nelson Williams speak first. I just wanted to say thank you also for putting this out there and allowing our parents an opportunity to look at it, as well as the board. I think I've heard a lot of comments that we're already starting school next week, and that this has seemed like an exceptionally short summer for everybody. And it may be, counting weeks, one of the shortest we've had, at least in my 18 or 20 years being a Carmel parent. But thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the careful consideration. I also would just make a suggestion for our next survey, since you mentioned it, for you and Dr. Herrera. I want to, and I know this is difficult in a survey, but I want to make sure, to the extent we can, if there are trade-offs to making changes. For example, I think it's really easy to say, yeah, I'd love to have a week for fall break. Let's go to Disney for a week. Does everybody understand that there's trade-offs associated with that? Because at the end of the day, we still have to have 180 calendar days of school. So if the trade-off is we start the first week of August, or there's some other trade-off that's associated with that, let's make sure when we survey that, to the extent we can, and I know it's not always possible, we can make sure the parents that we're surveying and that take the time to do the survey understand some of the trade-offs associated with those kind of if-then situations. That would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Similarly, appreciate the advance notice. Selfishly, as a parent of a graduate in 2027, appreciate knowing now for my parents who don't live here to be able to, block their calendars and make their travel plans. Can you speak to discussions with teachers union, in regard to what's being proposed as well?
Absolutely. So I did, first of all, I did run this past the administrators at our back-to-school administrator meeting, and many of them clapped when I shared this with them. I'll let you know that. I also met with our Teachers Association President, Mr. Mark Ween, who reviewed the calendar, and he also approves of it as well. One of the things we had to do with the teachers is we had an extra teacher day on there, so we put that at the beginning of the year. I believe about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, we had 3 teacher days to kick off the school year, and they absolutely loved it, and the feedback on that was very positive. So we'll be able to accomplish that with this calendar modification proposal as well. In addition to that, I will share with you that I personally spoke with Jennifer Brown with the Carmel Clay Parks and Rec, and talked to her, because if we are extending the summer, will the programming from the Parks Department, will they be able to accommodate an additional week? And Jennifer said that that would not be a problem. She would be happy to do that. So I wanted to share that as well.
Just a minor footnote, as reminiscing back when I was a kid, extending the summer just sounds wonderful. But we're not really giving them another week in summer. We're just shifting it, right? So they're in school a week longer in May than they would be.
Yes, I see what you're saying. So if they got out early, they'd have a week early in May versus having it a little bit later. So that's one thing, yeah. Depends on how you look at it.
I said sort of facetiously, looking at it, says you get an extra week of summer. And
that's correct.
Kids are pretty
yes,
smart. They'll figure it out.
Technically,
May
that's
is
correct.
spring. Technically, May is spring and August is summer. Just put that.
I see what you're saying, but also with graduation as well, we'd be holding those seniors back a week essentially, so they wouldn't be able to celebrate the summer early, and so there's trade-offs, as Ms. Wheeler shared there. So yes, I see your point.
Great, thank you. Great information. And again, those were discussion items, so there was no action on any of those, just discussion. Next up, we have our reports, and first is the monthly financial update. Mr. McMichael.
Had the finger on the button. All right. Oh, that's no. What I did what?
I may have kicked you out. Share screen.
Yeah, I did share screen. There it is. All right, almost. Well, a little bit different format here. We had a recommendation from the board member that we essentially put the current budget, side by side with the 24 budget, as opposed to 2 different pages, and that was a very good suggestion. One that I thought of from time to time, but never quite got that done. But as with other suggestions sometimes. But this time we got it finished, and you can see we now are side by side. It'll make it a lot easier for me to present it to you, and also easier for you to keep track of it. And so with that, I'll start as I usually do with the education and operating referendum and the rainy day fund. I'll take a few more comments because this is the end of the fiscal year, and so this is a month that we particularly assess and kind of, determine where we think we're at as compared to last year and this year as well. But and so I'll start there. But but you'll see that we ended the year this year up about $1 million, and we'd rather be up than down. But I'll point out that when you'll remember this, but when we get to the rainy day fund, we also put $3 million more money. There's more rainy day fund. In other words, so you might, all things equal, it should have gone up $3 million, not $1 million. However, you may remember that a month or 2 ago we had a report with some changes at the state where we had to close out the textbook rental fund, and it was at a negative $1.5 million, and this is where it came from. Now, I also said at that time that the nature of our textbook purchases are depending on what's being adopted. The literature adoption, for example, is a lot more expensive than the fine arts adoption and so forth. And so that $1.5 million should over the life of the adoptions, it'll balance itself as it does. And we'll have some years where we'll gain cash because of it, because we won't spend all that the state gives us. It's in the context of about $2.5 million a year, by the way. So that had a negative impact on this, is what I'm saying. And then the second thing I would point out is that you may remember that we literally held money back in the first year of the biennium in order to give the very minimal raise that we gave in the second year. But that had the effect then of increasing cash because we weren't spending it, so that we could spend it this year. And then if that works out perfectly, then we ended up even going forward. And so when you adjust for those, then we're about right on target. If anything, we are a little ahead of last year, but not $3 million, of course, because of what I said. But still, we're in very solid. This is telling me that I'm very satisfied with where we ended up. I don't see any major, financial issues that are going to be recurring and all of that. And so overall, our major funds here they're maintaining themselves nicely, and you can see the ending fiscal year cash balance, which is certainly adequate. It's not excessive. We've talked about that before as well, but we're in solid financial condition. Going to the operations fund, this fund as always is not as comparable because of the nature of the expenses. The first fund, it's well over 95% salary and benefits, so it's every year. So, and you're spending salary and benefits every 2 weeks, right, for payroll. So it's a lot more predictable, really, or comparable from one year to the next. This fund, only about half of it is for salary and benefits. The other half is everything from construction projects, maintenance projects, buses, those kinds of non-personnel things that can vary depending on when you're doing the projects and when you're paying them out. But nevertheless, everything looks good here. Excuse me, we did go up in terms of our balance. There we go. So, and this is we did gain cash here, even kind of the bottom line. The single significant factor of that had to do with the circuit breaker, and because of, I won't get into all the details, but our circuit breaker loss, if you will, was close to $2 million less than what it typically is. It went from like $3 million to $1 million in round numbers, and so that helped this. But unfortunately that's not going to be recurring, and there were reasons why that happened, but it's not going to be recurring. So it absolutely helped this year, but it's not like we're going to have an extra $2 million every year is what I'm saying. But it did help this, which helps not only this fund, but this is the same fund that we've been fortunate to be able to move some money, as I said earlier, to the rainy day fund. And so this is also the fund that, or a fund that will be impacted by some of the new legislation. So, we're all anxious to really see the impact of that. Everybody's, has an opinion, but nobody really knows because there was so much change that until we actually see it all enacted, and even then it's going to continue to change for several years in the future. So at any rate, that's kind of the summary. And then finally, that's not it. The rainy day fund, which you can see is $7.5 million, and last year at this time it was $4.5 million. As I said, we transferred $3 million. So that's really, because this fund is by nature is you can see there's we don't use this fund except for either minor things, typically things that are not recurring, because it's a form of our savings account for literally a rainy day, and so we've not spent this on recurring expenses. And if we did do that, we'd have a plan to stop doing it, because obviously it would soon run out if we took that approach. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. No questions. Next, we have the Staff and Student Services report with Dr. Herrera.
Madam President, just for the record, I'd like the public to know it was 52 degrees on the last day of school this past May.
Thank you for that.
All right, President Koke and members of the board, I have tonight's human resources update. So the CCS job fair occurs twice a year, and this summer we actually held it in July. This was our highest attended event with 94 attendees that came. We had on-the-spot interviews, assistance with the application process in both English and Spanish. We had schools and departments represented and even had a few people interested in driving a bus. So I'm happy to say that as of today, we've also hired 5 new bus drivers. So that's great news. And then also want to give a shout out to the staff in the schools and the HR team for just helping us get ready for this school year, both classified and certified staff. We're in a really good place right now heading in to the week before school starts. And I'll give you a little bit more information here in a minute. This data reflects the number of candidates who have applied for jobs after each of our hiring events, and then also gives the hire rate. So you'll see that we had 78 candidates apply for a position. We actually had 67 new applications within the first day of the job fair. So that's really exciting. Goes to show how much the HR team did at the event to help people get on the computer and register for a position or sign up for a position. One thing you will notice is that the hire rate is much less at our July job fair, being at 16%. But I think one thing to know is we just had less openings this year. We didn't have as many as what we've had in the past. Substitute teachers, we always need substitute teachers. As you know, sometimes our substitutes help fill our full-time vacancies for our classroom IAs or just different positions we have within a building. Sometimes they'll also fill short-term teacher vacancies. And so we've already hosted one onboarding session with 12 new applicants and then have another one scheduled for August 6th. So we are in a really good place with substitute teachers as well. We've had a very successful summer of hiring teachers. I will say that SLPs and our special education teachers continue to be in high demand, but we've done a great job with retaining them in both of these areas. We've not seen as many resignations or retirements in these areas. We've had very little turnover this summer. And I'm excited to announce that as of this afternoon, we are fully staffed in our certificated positions. So one week away, and right now we're fully staffed. So feeling really good in the HR department. This is our hiring data since 2019, and this shows our resignations, retirements, and then a total off to the side. A few things I'll mention here is that on average, this is looking at around 1,000 teachers, so give or take 1,000 teachers. And then I do want to address the increase that we see between 21-22 and 2022-23 when we see that little uptick of resignations. We do believe, that was on the heels of COVID and really looking at people making life decisions, making some life choices on whether or not they stay home with their children, they want to return to work, or even some people that relocated to other areas. And then my final slide I have here, and this is, we are so excited to have 7 new teachers that we just hired that are actual Carmel High School graduates. So really excited to have them circle back and, be ready to make a difference in what they probably saw in their teachers. So super excited about that. So thank you, and I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Herrera. Love to see that, especially the CHS graduates coming back, and wonderful job to you and your team. Kudos for that and being fully staffed. I also wanted to know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, for anybody that's watching that might be interested in a substitute position, teaching position, my recollection is you can be as broad or as narrow in what you're willing to do. You can select the days of the week, the particular calendar days. If you want to be at the same school as your kids, so you're on the same time, start time and stop time, you can do that. You can pick grade level, you can pick subject matter. It's very, very personal and specific, and I don't know that every parent or adult in our community who might be interested realizes how much you can tailor that substitute work to your own schedule and your own wants and needs for yourself and your family. So thanks for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Herrera. It's a great report. You anticipated some of my questions on the hiring, the resignations and retirements graph. I would be curious. I know it's 7 years ago, so it's like old data at this point. But what those numbers looked like a couple of years before we started to see COVID at some point. But I think this is great data to sort of continue to be able to report out on. And if we can plop a footnote on the graph that just says how many teachers we employ, because we might remember, but especially if this remains public and we keep having this report on an ongoing basis, just to remind the community, I mean, those percentages then are fairly low in this kind of industry that tends to see a lot of turnover. So it's great data, and I appreciate you sharing it with us tonight.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I have a brief legislative update. On Friday, I will be spending the day as part of the ISBA Legislative Committee, and that is a 2-year appointment that I'm serving. So this is our organization meeting, and we will be working on the ISBA legislative priorities for this coming year. And then next, we have Mr. Shapiro with the Parks update, Parks report.
Parks update, Parks report. Thank you, President Koke. Just a couple of items. As you pointed out, I sit on the Parks Board as an appointment from the school board. A couple of items that were shared at the last Parks meeting that I think might be relevant or important to members of the community that I wanted to share. First, the board has approved some park improvements at Founders Park that'll be taking place soon, which is one of the few parks that has not been upgraded in the last few years. So they'll be replacing the playground surface there. Roger talked about new playground surfaces. Sandbox is being renovated, sidewalk improvements, and some additional fencing. If you're familiar with that park, sort of the playground ends, and there's nothing really stopping people from getting in, especially younger children, from getting into the parking lot. So some safety and security measures will be put there. Also some additional signage to make it easier to spot and to bring it on brand with the rest of the Carmel parks. If you're a Monon Community Center member, you might have seen this email, but the indoor pool is being resurfaced. So there's been some adjusted hours for those of you who like to swim laps, so check that out. Don't want to stop anybody from getting their cardio in. And then finally, I had shared in a previous report about the newest park coming to the system, Bear Creek Park, so on the far west side, right off of Shelbourne, just south of 146th Street. And a committee has been put together comprised of members of the Parks Board, members of the City Council that will be reviewing RFPs. And we are hopeful that in the next few months there'll be some more exciting news to share about park development there. So new park coming to the west side of Carmel. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Exciting things coming from the parks. Next up, we have our superintendent's report with his first report, and Dr. Ostrike.
Thank you very much, President Koke. And I just want to start off by thanking the school board for this incredible opportunity to serve as your superintendent. I sincerely appreciate the outpouring of support from our Carmel community as I officially started this role on July 1st. I also want to say congratulations to Dr. Herrera on her first school board meeting as our new Assistant Superintendent of Staff and Student Services. You did a great job tonight. Thank you very much. And a big thank you to our teachers, our administrators, our parents, and our students for all the kind messages and notes and words and pop-ins and A special thank you also to the Woodbrook Kindness Club who stopped by during my first week. It was wonderful seeing our students come wish me well. They were super kind. And then our teachers, many of the teachers you saw here today stopped by with the Kindness Club. So that was very kind. I appreciate that. I also want to thank, as we start the school year, I want to thank our custodians, our maintenance staff, our bus mechanics, our transportation staff, our food service employees, Mr. Toby Steele, our Director of Operations, Ms. Tabitha Hughes, for all their incredible work in preparing our buildings, our buses, and our learning spaces for our students and teachers as we start the return to the 25-26 school year. They've worked so hard these past months, and we appreciate their dedication and hard work throughout the summer. I also want to recognize Mr. McMichael for his leadership with our facilities and operations teams to ensure that our buildings are prepared for the arrival of our students next Wednesday. Additionally, this building, if you don't know, is packed with teachers all summer long. And I do want to thank hundreds of our Carmel Clay Schools teachers for engaging in professional development over the summer to further enhance their own instruction in our classrooms. And our students are so lucky to have our dedicated CCS teachers who are willing to go the extra mile for our students each and every day. Moreover, thank you to our principals, our assistant principals, our department chairs, our district administrators who have put in countless hours this summer providing professional development and preparing for the start of this school year. And so I do also want to give a shout out to our technology team. They are supporting new technology across the district, but also there's a new PowerSchool IEP and ILP system at the state level, and that's kept our technology team busy over the summer. So thank you to our technology team, Mrs. Cloud for leading that team, also to our special education administrators, our SPED teachers, our SLPs, our school psychologists who are navigating this new tool while also supporting our students and our families as we begin the school year. Finally, you heard a report on this, but like to also thank our HR team, our finance team, who they've welcomed numerous new employees and have worked diligently to ensure that they are ready to go. They have everything they need. All their questions are answered. And so in order to be successful in their new roles, so I appreciate that. And so overall, I am grateful for our Carmel Clay Schools team, including all of our certified and classified staff members. We are well prepared to serve our students and families this school year. It's going to be an awesome year, and together we achieve. And so it's been a very smooth transition to the role, and I really, really appreciate everyone's help and support because it takes all of us, our parents, our students, our teachers, our staff, our school board, working together to take great care of our kids, and that's what we're here to do. I do have a couple updates as well. The Tech Hounds, they don't stop. They keep going. And so they continued this summer at the 2025 World Championships in Houston, Texas. And they competed in the Newton Division, and they advanced as medalists, as Newton Division finalists. So they were state champions. They won all kinds of awards this school year, but they continued in the summer and continued showing up at a high level across the nation. So congratulations to our Tech Hounds. In addition, our Tech Hounds hosted summer camps this summer. And I also want to give a shout out to our STEM and robotics teachers at the middle school level, especially Mrs. Barbara Glenesk and Mr. Brandon Crawford. They held robotics camps for our elementary students. And so we are expanding STEM here in Carmel Clay Schools, and I'm really excited about that. And when I think about real-world experiences, which you're going to hear at the next board meeting, student outcomes, STEM, our Tech Hounds, our elementary and middle school robotics teams are truly a shining example of that, and I'm excited for the future that we have here in the district, especially when it comes to STEM. Our bell ringer tonight is academic excellence, and we've received our academic achievement results over the summer for our AP scores and also for our iLearn scores at the state level. And first of all, congratulations to all of our AP students. Nearly 95% of them scored a 3 or higher with 2,277 AP students taking an impressive 5,144 AP exams. That's just incredible. And so what that means is that means savings to parents because their children will now be getting credit at a lot of colleges and universities across the country. And so a huge congratulations to our AP teachers, those who continue to support and prepare our students for success. Even, we had a transition this year, we had a shift to digital exams, and our kids and our teachers still knocked it out of the park. So incredible. One last highlight on that. So AP Pre-Calculus was a new AP test this year. We had 300 students took that exam, and all 300 students received a 3 or higher in that new test. And get this, 203 of them received a perfect 5. Over 67% of the students who took AP Pre-Calculus this year, a new exam, perfect 5. That's just, those results are incredible. So congratulations to everyone. And then also with our iLearn results, those came out recently this summer. Carmel Clay Schools is #1 in the state when it comes to combining our ELA and math combined proficiency in the state of Indiana. We're #1 in English language arts. We're #2 in math, and not too far behind there. We're #2 in science. We're #3 in social studies. But I do want to share, even with those very impressive results, that we never define our students by a single assessment, and so we're not going to define the district that way. But these iLearn results still offer a valuable snapshot of our continued growth, our journey, our academic excellence, of how we're performing compared to nearly 400 school districts across the state of Indiana. And so just another thank you to our kids, our parents who prepare our kids so well to come to school every day, especially our teachers and our administrators. And so very, very impressed with all of them and appreciate everybody's efforts. And then I have a story to finish up the superintendent report tonight. And so you may or may not know, but back in 1999, in the late 1900s, I did, or maybe the late 1990s, I did my student teaching at Carmel High School. I student taught in January of '99, and Mr. Tom Dick was the orchestra teacher at the time. And I had an incredible experience. My dream job was always to be the orchestra director and teacher at Carmel High School. And so after I graduated from high school, or I'm sorry, not high school, after I graduated from college, I became a teacher at Eastwood Middle School, just south of here in Washington Township. Well, when I was finished student teaching, the students were very kind, and they all signed an old violin for me, which was really, really cool. And so I took that violin with me to my first orchestra teaching job at Eastwood Middle School, and I hung it on the wall there at Eastwood. And so I was very proud of that violin and the work we did through my student teaching. And so I had it up during my teaching. Then I became an assistant principal at Eastwood, and the new orchestra teacher said, "We love the violin there. Could you keep it up on the wall?" I'm like, "No problem, no problem." So then, as I went through my career, the violin stayed up on the wall at Eastwood, and then I went from assistant superintendent in Washington Township to assistant superintendent in Carmel. And so I called the orchestra director and I said, "Hey, this is sentimental for me. Could I please have that violin back? I'd love to put it in my new office." And she said, "We just started a major renovation. I cannot find it." And unfortunately, I think it got tossed in the trash. And so the violin was gone. And so, I told there's a new orchestra teacher at Eastwood, and I saw her at a conference and told her the story and all of this. Well, yesterday, I got a message on Facebook from the orchestra teacher at Eastwood, and she said, "I think I might have your violin." And so I said, and she sent me a picture of it. And I said, "Well, let me take a look and see what we have here." And lo and behold, she found the violin that the Carmel High School students back in 1999, they're all 40, between 40 and 44, just to let you know now, that's how old I am. And so they all, and you can see the back, the sides, the fingerboard, that's signed all over. So Ed Moy, you're right in the middle there. That's who I saw. I believe Ed was a music major at Butler University, and I believe he's teaching right now. Leah Sutner, she taught orchestra at Avon, a very great program. So I imagine some of these students back in 1999 may live in Carmel now, and their kids may even go to Carmel. So Rachel Rubenstein, if you go to Carmel, I'd love to see you. If can't, you know Rachel? Oh, okay. Cameron Gillespie, if you're here, I'd love to know you. Shayla Delaney, you can go on and on and on. Some of them said that they were my favorite, and so on and so forth. And so, anyways, I'm very pleased to report that this will be displayed proudly in the superintendent office at Carmel Clay Schools. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a great story. Just shows, I feel like, what a difference teachers make in our kids, and that stays with you your whole career. I have a few announcements to make. Believe it or not, school starts next week. So the Monday and Tuesday, August 4th and 5th, are teacher contract days. August 6th, Wednesday, is the students' first day of school. Our next meeting is August 11th. That is a workshop session. And then August 25th is our regular session. Now these are streaming live for you to be able to sit at home and watch us if you would like to. On YouTube, yes? Yeah.
They're on Zoom, and then we will still convert those over to YouTube and put them on our YouTube page as we always have in the past.
Well, there we go. So that you can watch us live from the comfort of your own home and not have to go out in the heat if you would like to. The only other announcement is that September 1st, our schools will be closed for Labor Day. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
A second? Thank you. Meeting adjourned.